This is our first lesson in Unit 1, Introduction to Algebra. Today we're just going to be working with exponents, and we have been working with exponents already while we've been doing some review from grade 7 and 8, so hopefully today's lesson will be not too bad. Special powers. So these guys all have special powers, but that's not what we're talking about today. Special powers are x to the power of 0 being equal to 1. So here are some practice questions with special powers. 3 to the power of 0 is equal to what? So remember this rule, you need to memorize it. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. 3 to the power of 0 then, of course, is going to be 1. And we always ask ourselves for the next one, what is the exponent touching? The 0 exponent is touching a bracket. So if the 0 exponent is touching a bracket, it means the whole bracket set, everything inside of it gets the power of 0. So negative 5 to the power of 0 is 1. Now if we had negative 5 to the power of 0 like this, then that really means only the 5 is getting the exponent. So the answer for that one would be a negative 1. Here's the other special power. X to the power of 1 is x, or any number. So let's just practice that out. 4 to the power of 1, that's going to be a 4. And negative 8 to the power of 1, again, the 1 is touching the bracket, so the whole thing, so the answer is just negative 8. We don't need a bracket on that. Next example, we've got some terminology here. We've got 5 to the exponent 3, so that whole thing is called a power. The 5 is the base. The 3 is the exponent, and altogether it's a power. And sometimes we use the word term as well for that. So when we have something written out, these are all equal to each other. All of the 3 ways of writing these are all equal to each other. The first one written like this, as we just saw, this is exponential form because it has an exponent in it, so it's exponential form. 5 times 5 times 5, the long way of writing it all out, is called expanded form because we've expanded this out to expanded form. And then the last one, when we finally answered the question, is called evaluated form because the answer has been evaluated. So here's our example 1. Evaluate. Negative 2/5 to the power of 4. So I'm writing it out 4 times, and I'm putting in red just to show what's different. Remember, every line begins with an equal sign. So the power of 4 is touching the bracket, so the whole bracket set gets written out 4 times. Now, you cannot use decimals if there's no decimals in the question. There shall be no decimals in your answer unless there are decimals in the question. So as soon as we saw this, you pull out your calculator and you were putting it in your calculator to get a decimal answer. That one doesn't count. You would get no marks for that at all. If the question is in fractions, then you have to have your answer and show your work in fractions. You can use your calculator for hard questions, but be sure you can multiply by hand as well. So when we get to this line here, we've got to multiply. Remember the rule we did back when we did some recap. We did numerator times numerator, so we've got to multiply all these numerators together. So we've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So that's a lot of 2's. You shouldn't need your calculator for that. Do them one at a time, and you'll get, so if I do these 2, 2 times 2 is 4. Times this 2 is 8. 8 times 2 gives me 16. So my numerator is 16. Now when I look at the negative signs, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So 2 negatives make a positive, so these 2 are gone because they've turned into a positive. There's 2 more negatives, they've turned into a positive, so my answer is positive. If you have an odd number of negatives, you'll have a negative answer. If you have an even number, you'll have a positive answer. Now we look at our denominator. We've got 5 times 5 times 5 times, I crossed that out, but that's 5 times 5, that's 4 of them. So 5 times 5, we know the first 2 here. 5 times 5 is going to be 25. This pair also on its own is a 25. So then you're doing 25 times 25. And as it says over here on the left in this squiggly box, You can use a calculator for 25 times 25, but just be sure you know how to do it by hand as well. So we're getting 16 over 25. And when you write fractions, do not write it like this. Right? That is the way we would write, kilometers per hour or something. We will not write fractions like that, so please don't do that. They each get their own space, numerator and denominator. Next question, B, -7 to the power of 3. What is the exponent touching? Be careful. It's touching the 7. And the 7 is not in a bracket with a negative, so the negative doesn't get repeated. Only the 7 gets repeated 3 times. So again, what is 7 times? Well, 7 times 7. So first of all, our answer is going to be a negative. We only have one negative, so our answer is going to be a negative. And then 7 times 7 is 49. Let me write that down. So that's 49 times, remember dot for multiplication, 49 times 7. So you can use your calculator, but make sure you can do it without your calculator too, because you have to do a lot of work in grade 9 without a calculator on tests or on evaluations. So that's -343. And those are things you can look up. If you forgot how to do multiplication, so multiplication by hand, you can look that up. There's a lot of stuff that we can't keep teaching over and over again in grade 9. So I can review it a little bit, and I have already, but now we've got to move on. Part C. So this one's a bit weird because of these decimals. So let's ignore the decimal part here, and let's just look at the 3. 3 to the power of 3. What is 3 to the power of 3 if we just did that part right there? So I'm going to just scribble this off for a second here. 3 to the power of 3. So 3 to the power of 3 is 3 times 3 times 3. So that would be 27. But we've got decimals there, and we've got 3 of them. So instead of 27, we need to have a decimal place, 3 decimal places in there. So I'm going to have to put a 0 there. So that's going to be 0.27. And the 1.2, I'm going to scribble out this decimal here. What's 12 squared? You should know what 12 squared is. 12 squared is 144. But if I did 1.2 times 1.2, 144, I have 2 numbers after the decimal place here, so I'm going to need a decimal there. So my next line is 0.027 plus 1.44. And then we have to add those the way that we talked in our one of our review lessons about adding. Make sure you line everything up properly. So we can do that on the side. 1.44 plus 0.027. And we add all of that up. 1.467. So those are some practice with exponents and doing some multiplication and addition on your own. Again, as it says over here on the left, you can use your calculator, but make sure you can do it by hand as well. So if you're doing everything, all of this stuff with your calculator, and then when it comes to the evaluation, when it counts for marks and you can't do it, you can't say to me, oh, I look at my homework, I got all my homework right, but you used a calculator for that. So make sure it's okay to skip ahead to a calculator if you're confident in your skills, but if you're not, then you need to be doing it by hand. Example 2, and this is our last slide, so another short lesson here. Follow the order of operations to evaluate. So we've got an order of operations question, bed mass. What is the exponent touching? Are you getting tired of hearing me saying that? What is the exponent touching? So I specifically pointed at the middle one here. They all have exponents, but this one, because of this subtraction sign, the 3 exponent is just touching the base 2. So this would be the only thing that's going to be repeated here is the 2. So it's 1 to the power of 5, subtract 2 times 2 times 2. Now I'm going to skip a step here. 1 to the power of 5. What's that? Everyone should know what that is. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 to the power of 3 is 8, and that black subtraction sign is still there. That didn't get repeated. And then there's divided by 4 to the power of 0 is 1. So in the order of operations, B is for brackets, no brackets. E is for exponents, we did the exponents. Now division, multiplication, in the order they appear, we only have this division piece here to do. So that leaves us with 1 minus 8, and now we can finish the question. 1 subtract 8. You can use your number lines for this if you need to. You don't want to mess this up. 1 minus 8 is negative 7. Example 3 is our last one. And what I did was I went to your textbook and I took a question from your textbook. It's an example. So your textbook starts off every section with examples like what I'm doing, with examples written out and solutions written out with them, and shows you how to solve a problem. So I'm going to go through this example with you and show you how to, in the future, go to your textbook yourself. Let's say you need more help than what I taught you, you need to look at more examples. Then you can learn how to follow the examples on your own, just the way I'm doing it here. It's a really good resource to have all those extra examples to look at, other than just the ones I'm giving, example 2, example 3, and we had one before example 1. So there's a whole plethora of further examples in your textbook that you can read through on your own. All right, here's the question that I just took right out of your textbook. Which container holds more popcorn? How much more? Assume that each container is filled to the top, just to the top, so it's not overflowing. Round your answer to the nearest cubic centimeter. So we've got this popcorn container and this popcorn container, mega box and jumbo drum. And which one holds more? So I want you to think right now, am I asking for area or volume or surface area here? Which one holds more? Volume, right? So we're looking for volume. We're going to compare the two of them, mega box and jumbo drum. So we need formulas. Mega box, look at these dimensions here. It's 9 by 2 by 9 by 2 by 9 by 2. So the picture doesn't look quite like a cube, perfect cube, but it is. These dimensions are all exactly the same, so it's a cube. So the volume of a cube is side cubed. I don't like using S very much because S looks like a 5, and too often I see students just kind of forget that it's not a 5. So you could change to an L if you want to, but I know most of you probably are already comfortable with an S. So, and let's look at jumbo drum. What shape is this? It's a cylinder. So the volume of a cylinder is the area of the base of the cylinder, and the bottom of the cylinder is a circle. So the area of the base of the circle, that's pi r squared, times the height. So there's a formula for the jumbo drum. Now we're going to sub in some values here. Let's start with the mega box. So I sub in for the side, mega box is 9.2, so the volume is equal to, I'm going to always substitute using brackets. Remember that rule? 9.2 cubed. So 9.2 cubed, here you may use your calculator for 9.2 cubed. So whenever you, and you'll have some questions in your homework that it says right on your homework that you can use your calculator. 9.2 cubed, so I'm going to write down what we've got here. It's, if you got it, pulled out your calculator, and if you don't have a scientific calculator with an exponent button on it, then you're doing 9.2 times 9.2 times 9.2. Many calculators will have a button like this though, x to the power of y maybe, or it might be the other way around. It might be y to the power of x. So you can try that out right now. You can put in 9.2 and then you hit one of these buttons up here. And then after you hit the button, you'll hit the 3 and then probably the equal sign or the answer button or something. And what you should get is 778.688. The question didn't tell us how, told us at the end that we need to round our answer to the nearest cubic centimeter. So we're not quite at the answer yet though, actually, because remember the question was, which container holds more popcorn? How much more? That's the question, so that's what we're working towards. The jumbo drum, it's in the shape of a cylinder. So let's put our formula here. Volume equals pi. If you have a pi button on the calculator, I'm going to leave this as a pi. I don't want you typing in 3.14 in your calculator. If you have a pi button, use a pi button. If not, you can type in 3.14. The radius, what is the radius? So looking back over here at this jumbo drum, we're given the diameter. The diameter is 10.4. The radius is half of that. And for the formula, I need the radius. So I'm going to have to figure out, this is the diameter, that's a diameter, and radius is equal to half of the diameter. So my radius is what I need to sub in there. Half of 10.4 is 5.2. 5.2. That's squared, always substitute using brackets. And my height is 9.0. So the next step, according to the order of operations, is to take care of the exponent. So the first thing I'm going to do is the exponent. So pi, I'm leaving as a pi. 5.2 times 5.2 is 27.04. Then times 9.0. Whoops. Need a bracket first. 9.0, which I can just make a 9, right? Because 9.0 is the same as 9. So now I'm doing multiplication. All of these three numbers are being multiplied together, so you can do them all at once on your calculator. But we're getting an approximate answer here, so I'm going to put a dot over my equal sign because it's approximately equal to. Oh, the question we just did with the mega box, this was not approximate. This was all the numbers on my calculator. That's all there were. So this is exactly equal to this number. It's not approximately equal, but because pi is an irrational number, it's non-terminating, it's not repeating, I have to round it. I can't keep writing it out forever. So once you hit your pi button, or hopefully you know a few numbers of pi, and if not, you've got that song 3.14159, right? You can go through that and get a few points, get a few decimal points there. So we multiply all of this stuff together and we get approximately 764.54. 764.54. So that's approximate. And the question says, so I highlighted it there in yellow, which container holds more popcorn? So which one holds more popcorn? Megabox holds more popcorn. It's larger. So Megabox holds more popcorn, and how much more? How do we figure out how much more? We're going to have to subtract. So we're going to subtract from, I'll put it in the middle, sort of, 778.688, and we're going to subtract the jumbo drum from that, 764.54. So you're going to subtract that, and then we have to come up with a sentence to go along with this. Whenever we have a word problem, whenever our problem is a real world problem, we have to answer with a full sentence. But before I write my sentence, remember what I underlined here. Round your answer to the nearest cubic centimeter. So here's my answer of how much more the Megabox has. I have to round to the nearest cubic centimeter. That means no decimal places should be left. So either I'm going to write 14 or 15. I look to the number to the side of it and it's a 1, so this 14 is going to stay a 14. So I'm going to write out a sentence, and 3 dots in math means therefore, if you haven't seen that before, therefore the Megabox holds 14 what? 14 more kernels of popcorn? What is the units here? 14 centimeters cube, because we're talking about volume. 14 centimeters cube more popcorn than the jumbo drum. So there's my answer as a sentence, which is required. Anytime you have a word problem, you've got to have a word answer. And there's your whole lesson for today in less than 20 minutes. You have questions to practice in your textbook, and you can use your calculator if you get to some questions that have some big numbers in it, but make sure for most regular kind of multiplication, addition kind of stuff, you can do it on your own. Good luck.